friends. I'm Wendy Joe, and this is the Grow Podcast. And here's my friend Ashley. How are you today, Ashley?
I am good. Wendy Joe, how are you?
Doing all right, hanging in there. Thinking about this great episode about one of the tools that you can use to help with your spiritual experience. Today, we're talking about cannabis.
Ooh, that's my thing, right?
Yes, I have to say it's one of my things also. And I do think it's a great tool. I think that cannabis can also, so at least for me anyway, I guess I can only speak for myself, can really stir up some deep thought
Mm,
when using the plant. And I didn't realize that was true when I first started using it for healing purposes. At that time, I was withdrawing from opiates and other pharmaceuticals and really was just looking for that assistance with withdrawal and healing. But over time, I also realized that it helps me to heal my mind and emotions as well.
mhm.
Have you had any spiritual experiences with it?
Yeah, definitely. For me, I'm a high, no pun intended, but I am a high intensity kind of person, even though it may not show right now, and my mind moves really quickly. And so I feel like a lot of my experiences, especially in my younger years, where I wasn't really tapped in, it was because I was moving too fast, like literally moving too fast, going from one job to the next, going from one activity to the next, trying to hit a milestone, next milestone, whatever. And I feel like part of my experience was to slow things down and give myself space to breathe and give myself space to think. And I feel like the plant supported that, like allowed me to go through that experience, allowed me the space to awaken. I hear a lot of people talk about more of the, I guess, intensity of spiritual experiences. And that has not been my experience though, because I feel like I have very intense spiritual experiences anyway. And if I
Right.
give myself space to experience them, then I'll have them. So that's it for
So
the
it
most.
kind of calms your mind a bit so that you can open and have these experiences that you're going to have anyway, but maybe in a less intense way. Is that what you mean?
Not necessarily less intense, but more intentional way.
Okay.
Because
Right.
I'll glean past the experience. So on the last episode, we talked about the inner child and how she'll just kind of come out of nowhere. It's very easy to ignore her if she just kind of popping up, right?
Right.
So if I'm just moving, not really thinking, not being present, being driven by whatever is going on, then it makes it really difficult to pause and pay attention.
I can understand that. I think for me, I experienced some of that. So my mind is always working left to its own devices, right?
Mhm.
It's going to just keep going. I'm a creator. Like I can think of a million things to create. And, I'm not sure if I have some sort of attention deficit, but it'll be like, oh, I'm gonna create this, and I started, and then I'm gonna create this, and and not slowing down, and then you know thinking about uh, past experiences, things that I want to change. Like it's just always going. So I can relate to that. Cannabis can really slow your roll
Mhm.
just a little bit so that there's an opening to do some healing, and I think it's sort of strain dependent, maybe at least for me. Um, that's one way that I can enter a spiritual experience. But another thing that happens with me is um, this. It also creates space for some really deep thinking and um, and examining things that have happened in my life. Sometimes that happens when I don't really want it to. And so then I have to, what I do to remedy that is use something to bring the high down a little bit, like some black pepper or some isolated terpenes, just to kind of bring it down a little bit if I'm not ready for that experience.
Yeah.
But I do think there's something about the plant that um, just allows these different openings in your brain to look at things in a different way. You know?
Yeah, and it definitely does. And, makes meditation a little bit more tolerable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know if this is true for you, but I know for me, like spending 5 minutes meditating sometimes can be actually anxiety inducing because I'm waiting for the 5 minutes to pass, like,
Uh-huh.
thinking about all these things and I'm not really being present for the meditation process. And so, allowing myself to be still and feel my body
Mm.
becomes a little bit more accessible to me. Um, and
That's really provocative. Like when I think about that, you know, um, for some people it goes the other way where they have these like, you know, more psychedelic experiences maybe, or for you it's kind of grounding, it sounds like.
Yeah, it is. And I think to your point, it is strain dependent, dose dependent, intention based as well. So when you go into any spiritual practice, setting your intention prior to,
Mm-hmm.
it still is something that needs to be done. Um, because sometimes this is actually more of a personal opinion. I feel like sometimes when people experience like the paranoia, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's because like you are already in a state of some like less intense paranoia and it just heightened it. Like whatever you're feeling, whatever your intentions are, when you choose to go into your spiritual practice, it'll just be heightened by the plant.
Mm-hmm.
And so going into it with very clear intentions and laying that foundation. Again, I like to talk about tokens, like things that keep me grounded anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Cards are in my hand right now. Um, anything that keeps me on the ground because I'm a Pisces too. So by nature, I want to float. I want to kind of flow through something. I want to move somewhere. I want to imagine something. And so anything spirituality, I'm using it to create that balance for myself. And if it doesn't help me achieve that, then I'm not doing it.
Ah, very good points that I hadn't really thought about. I think i think I tend to be a little bit more grounded to start with. I'm not sure what that's related to. So I want a little more floating.
Okay.
And I mean, it's what everyone is different, right? So I want enough that I'm out of my body a little bit
Okay.
and seeing things in a different way. And I feel like the cannabis plant, just lends itself to that for me.
Mm,
But I can see the other side of it where it can take you in the other direction. So I think as a tool, the cool thing about it is, every body is different and what you need, it will supply.
hmm.
That's one of the beautiful things about cannabis.
Yeah, yeah, seriously. And I think it's important to highlight how everybody responds to everything differently. And so while something might work for you, it may not work as well for me, and vice versa. Recognizing that for people who are listening, like if it is not something that you need to include in your spiritual practice, then that's totally okay. It's just not for you. And that's true for any and all the tools that we're going to bring up here.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things I feel really good using, and then other things I just don't.
Right. Absolutely. And coming up next, we have a historical perspective from cannabis expert MD.
Hi, I'm Sam Nickel, the producer of Cannabis Expert MD. The first emperor of China, the Green Emperor, Shennong, is the first man credited with discovering the properties of cannabis. To test the different herbs of the region at the time, he would simply eat them and record his findings. With cannabis, he recorded it as having healing effects as well as life-giving properties. Unfortunately for Shennong, he would later come upon a fatal herb that would end his life. Shennong, the first emperor of China, is still relevant to traditional Chinese medicine to this day. His book, The Herbal, is still used even though it is over 5,000 years old.
And we're back. Well, that was an interesting tidbit about China and cannabis. I guess it's still illegal in China.
It's so
Uh,
interesting. And I hear they make some hemp, or they make a large amount of hemp
yeah, I
production.
think for the fiber they produce hemp, but as far as using it medicinally, not legal. I tried to look it up and find out exactly what the law is, and I couldn't
Yeah.
really find that. But I think in Asia generally it's mostly illegal, although Thailand did legalize.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I'm sure there's a heavy duty underground market though. Like,
Right.
I'm sure of it.
Hmm. For sure. I think everywhere, pretty
Right?
much. Right. Even still here in the States, because let's face it, legalization does not equal access for
Yeah,
people. You know, it's quite expensive at the dispensaries. And so this is still quite a legacy market in cannabis for sure. Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So, people have been using cannabis for spiritual experiences, obviously, for a really long time.
Mhm.
And in fact, some people start cannabis churches. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't. That's a new one for me. Cannabis
Really?
churches?
Cannabis churches. So
Yeah,
I
cannabis churches. I need to know.
well, they use cannabis as a sacrament in their
Okay.
services, and because churches are kind of protected, you'll see people start to create a church that uses cannabis, and it's sort of an interesting little conundrum for the government, right?
Yeah, they can
uh,
think about it.
mhm.
And it
uh,
supports capitalism, because the church, essentially isn't intended to, it's a nonprofit. So
mhm. Right. Yeah, exactly. So, I think that, you know, for a long time, people have taken this plant and found what works for them, and spirituality is no different. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I've never been to a church service where they were using it, but I would imagine that the congregation is using it like other things to enhance the experience of
yeah,
the
and I can
religious
see
service.
that. I can see that. I mean, similar to how they do the wine in church. I don't really understand why it's still illegal at this point. We know that it's not going to kill you, and there's plenty of anecdotal evidence to support its consumption. And so I think that if it's part of your religious ceremony to consume, it should. That's just what it is.
Right, right. And if it brings you to a calming place, a grounding place, or a more
Hmm.
ethereal place, whatever it does for you, why not use that as a tool in your tool bag?
Yeah,
If
and
you're
don't forget.
seeking enlightenment, if you're seeking growth, um, you know, some of the things we mentioned in the first segment can be really true for many people.
Absolutely. And I feel like for a lot of people, because of the narrative around cannabis, like they won't try it, they're scared of it, they think something bad's going to happen as a result of it. And, for the most part, I think it's sad because if you don't have access to it or you block yourself from access to it, you're missing out on an opportunity to find alternative ways of healing, and so whether it's spiritual healing or, symptom management or whatever, is something that I believe that everybody should have the right to choose.
Right. Right. So, do you have any particular strains that you feel put you in that space for meditation or really ground you to have that spiritual experience?
So generally, I look for products. So I don't go by strains. I
Oh,
look for products with specific terpene profiles.
mhm.
And I find that anything that has limonene in it, it also has to have pinene in it. And it can't be the main dominant terpene. Otherwise, I'll experience a lot of anxiety.
Mhm.
Um, I find that products that have beta carotene, you mentioned black pepper earlier,
Mhm.
also serves me pretty well. I generally look for products that would have more of a balance of THC and CBD. So I
Okay.
like to equal them out in my consumption patterns. I do very, very small dosing because, again, if I do too much, it'll border me into anxiety.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, that's the way I do it. I don't look for strains. I say, what do you recommend? And then I look at the profiles and then I compare them and then decide off of that.
Right. I can relate to that completely. Um, I so pining for me really can tip off PTSD.
Mm,
And in fact, I was just at the dispensary here last week trying to find uh, something that was a little more of an indica heavy, but not have a lot of pinene. And it's hard to do,
yeah, yeah.
really hard to do. Um, but I can relate to that. And it sounds like, because you're looking for that grounding, and what you described is what I look at for like day to day life
Hmm.
to kind of have a little more energy and you know be able to think more clearly. So when I'm looking for on the spiritual side, I want something that's really gonna be a little more calming, but not have the punny,
Yeah.
So, terpenes are really the secret sauce,
Hmm.
like that's, I think this, if you get anything from today, and using cannabis as a tool for spirituality, it's what you said. Look at the terpene profiles and, and journal about that experience, to find what will really help you to open up, relax, be present.
Yeah, definitely. And I like that you have brought up journaling because I think journaling is its own separate tool.
Mhm.
But I think it's especially helpful because you want a before and after consumption record
Mhm.
because your interpretation may shift a little bit of your experience. And so after you've had the experience, for however long you had it, and you go back and you review it, you want to be able to see, oh, okay, I had this feeling or that feeling or whatever, so you can better assess where you are, where you were, and where you're going.
Yeah, love that. And we'll be right back. Hey there, friends. Wendy Joe from the Grow podcast. Today we're talking about cannabis as a spiritual tool. How can cannabis serve as a spiritual tool? Well, just think about it. It can alter your mood for the better, relax you, open your mind. As you do that, you can be more open to new ideas, meditation, and more.
Have you heard of the Cannabis Nursing School? It's a place where cannabis nursing, entrepreneurship, and spirituality meet. The Highline Tribe is waiting for you, and it's so easy to find. CannabisNursingSchool.com.
Hey there, friends. If you're an intuitive like me, you have thoughts and feelings about your own health and sometimes the health of others. What you're dealing with is medical intuition, but you probably don't know how to harness it. Hey, I met this wonderful woman named Gina, and she's doing a training on medical intuition with her company, The Heal World. Let's face it, there's lots of people getting sicker and sicker, and they often don't find answers with mainstream medicine. We have lots of technology, but we're missing the key: medical intuition. If you'd like to learn more, you could email her at gina@blisslife.com or give her a call at 352-888-2100. The Heal World. And we're back. So I think with cannabis as a tool for spiritual growth, it's just really important to use this tool with mindfulness and respect and really figure out if it does enhance your spiritual experience and in what way and what works for you.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people will talk about like cannabis being addictive and all that kind of stuff, and it doesn't have to be. And I guess to clarify, it's not a physical addiction, it's more of a psychological habit loop kind of addiction that people are referring to. And so if you are using mindfulness in your spiritual practice, if you are respectful towards yourself and the plant, it could definitely leave space to serve you in your own evolution and your own growth.
Love that. So, this was our first episode about spiritual tools, and there's so many tools out there.
Yeah, and this is just one. And anybody's spiritual practice can use multiple tools at a given time, and you don't have to use all the same ones every single time either.
Mhm.
And so I think when introducing any tool, being mindful about your state of being in that moment is important to determine what will work for you. And you also have to grow to learn what works for you. So I always recommend trying things in isolation and then adding things on and experimenting with different things over time.
Right.
Because
That's so true. Recently, I added a couple of herbal supplements to my routine, and I added like three things at once, right? And then I was like, why did I do that? I mean, I know better, right? I don't know what's working. I don't know if I need all three of them because I put them all at the same time. And
yeah,
I think this is no different. Try, if you decide you're going to try cannabis as a spiritual tool, try that.
yeah,
See how
yeah,
it works for you. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't, maybe it will enhance the experience. You might love it and want to use it all the time. You might decide that you're going to use it on particular occasions when you're looking for deeper understanding, if it does that for you, or if you need just, a little grounding before you use a different tool. But yeah, that's really good advice. um, Try
you know,
one thing and then move on and try something else. Yeah.
I feel like I'm talking to the younger me because like I would be so driven to like try and get an outcome that I would be trying to do everything at once and be sitting there like I don't know what worked, to your point. Like I
Right.
don't know what worked, but I did it all and I'm trying to get somewhere,
Mhm.
and spirituality doesn't work that way.
Right. And that's also a good point. You can't really rush it.
Yeah.
So the tools are sort of a way to dig a little deeper or find a direction.
Yeah.
And, but it's not necessarily going to make you move faster. It will hopefully provide you more information, and it's really self-driven. So I'm excited to present more tools as we go along with the Grow podcast, so that people can really see that there are many available options out there. um, but I am excited about cannabis. It has helped me in my spiritual journey, and as an individual, I feel like one thing about cannabis that I love is that it creates some self-reliance in your
Mm.
own health and wellness and spirituality, rather than, you know, having to go to another person all the time. The plant is, can be married with you to self improvement in a really self driven way.
Yeah, somebody said this to me last night. When you get introduced to the plant in plant medicine, it shifts your paradigm to be exposed to all different paradigms that you never knew existed.
Beautiful. And a great way to end this episode. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.